残酷な天使のように少年よ神話に
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the AdCast, a podcast for the study of modern visual culture. I'm trembling in the anger.
I'm not saying it.
Listen. I trembled in the anger, and you won't even be the Kira Kira idol. I see how it is.
I didn't tell you to tremble in the anger.
I see how it is. But I am, and now that you're not the Kira Kira idol, I am trembling in the anger.
No. Okay, I'm the idol for today. So you
Listen,
can stop trembling.
Next time, you get to write the intro, and you figure out what you want to be. Be what you want to be, Barbie girl.
I'll be what I want to be.
Barbie girl. This week, AT stands for Absolute Territory because we'll be wrapping up the spring 2018 season. But before we get into that, what have you been up to, Renu?
I have recently gotten some free time now that June is over and my work has settled down. And nice. I guess the only other... Oh, you know what? Yesterday, I finished watching all of Critical Role Campaign 1. I finally finished.
Jesus Christ!
I started back in, like, March or April, and I binged until now.
Renu, that's so much. What?
It was a lot. It was so much. It got to the point, like, when I was in the hundreds, I was like, I'm finally getting tired.
Oh my god!
But you know what? It was worth it, and I'm glad that I watched it.
That is somewhat more impressive than the fact that I've watched 6.5 seasons of Parts Unknown since the end of the school year.
Oh no!
So aside from, living in Dungeons and Dragons world,
Yeah.
from which I have made a brief hiatus.
I mean, at least you were learning about the real world-ish by watching Parts Unknown.
It's true. It's true. I saw the real world instead of the Dungeons and Dragonverse. So what else have you been up to?
I mean, honestly, not that much. You got me started in Grand Blue.
Yes,
and
I did.
You did.
You started playing Grand Blue Fantasy and thereby made the greatest mistake of your life.
I kind of did. I went real hard on it the first day because I had to get through the whole Persona event. And it was the last day for the event. Yeah, it was the last day of the event, so I had to finish everything.
Yeah. It was unfortunate that the Legend Festival started very, very soon after you started.
Like
but
the day
that's just
after.
how it be. Yeah, that's just how it be sometimes.
It's fine. I don't mind. I got a cute small girl, and I got Joka, and I'm happy. And now I have Wind Boy, Gawain.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm slowly building a thing.
Have you found an element that you can even start building yet, or do you just still have a jumble of characters?
I just have a jumble.
Okay, that's fair.
But let's see. Right now I'm playing Sentinel. Because the guide that you gave me was just like, the first class that's probably the best one you should get in the beginning is the Dark Fencer or something.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been leveling towards that. But otherwise, I mean, it's fun. Like the art is really reminiscent of like kind of like a blend between Final Fantasy Tactics and Tactics Ogre. So I at least dig the aesthetic, and then the fact that it's more story heavy than like Fire Emblem Heroes or Puzzle and Dragons or whatever is nice. Though I end up skipping through a lot of the story like during the small quests or whatever.
Oh yeah, that doesn't matter at all, really.
Yeah.
In fact, the free quests, the vast majority of them, you don't have to pay attention to the story. There are a couple that are actually quite good, despite the fact that they're really short So they're like little vignettes, but they could easily be turned into like a chapter of a manga or an episode of an anime
Right.
if you extrapolated it out.
Right.
Some of the quests, especially on the island of the Mist-Shrouded Island, are quite good because, well, I won't talk about why that is, but trust me when I say they're quite good, even though there's not a lot to them, but there's a lot to infer from them, which is nice. Yeah, they're just like little tiny vignettes. Most of them don't really matter, especially in the first couple islands.
Yeah, that's what I figured. So I was like, okay, I'm starting to get the theme of these quests. I'm just gonna click through and...
It's just, I have a problem.
yeah.
Kill a monster. Thanks for killing the monster. Here's crystals.
Right. Or it'd be like, I want you to get this thing for me. It's like, cool, I'll kill the things to get the thing for you. But let's see what else. The raids are fun. I like going in and trying to take on a monster that I would never beat in my wildest dreams and just calling for help, and then people show up and kill it for me.
Instantly, because that's how public raids work.
Yeah, and it's wonderful.
If you want some help, I can now take care of most raids in the lower level bracket. So if you want a better chance at rewards, we can just like duo those, and that'll be fine. Just hit me up.
Okay.
Just be like, I need help.
Well, what difficulty? Because I don't know. Because it goes like from like normal, hard, really hard, and extreme or something.
There's normal for the raids. There's normal raids, hard raids, and what are called magnas or omegas.
Okay.
I can do up to omegas and up to. I can't do Celeste and Luminera or Chevalier, but I can do all of the main elemental magnas or omegas. Okay. Which are really, that's like the first hurdle you have to get past, is being able to MVP those. And during strike time, I can solo those. So feels good.
Feels good.
I would hope that I would at least be at this level 2 months into the game. I'm 2 months into the game now, by the way, officially.
Congratulations.
Yeah. Grand Blue Fantasy is really fun.
It is a lot of fun. I think my progress kind of slowed down after the event, but I might pick it up again now that it's like a small holiday. So
also there's an event going on right now which is really good. The writing for the side stories gets better every time.
Okay.
But this event especially is pretty good, and if you do it, you'll get a really convenient summon who increases your drop rate when you put it as your main summon. So I would consider running through the story.
Sure, I'll do that.
And luckily, because it's an event, it's really easy because you can they're considered raids, so you can just open it up to the public, and they'll come and kill it for you in 2 seconds because they want the help bonus.
Yay, help me and get your bonus.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I look forward to playing more.
Is there anything else besides Grand Blue Fantasy and Critical Role?
No, man. Listen, it's just been work and watching and playing things. it's been my life the past month.
That's fair. It's just how it be sometimes.
That is how it be. What you been up to besides Grand Blue?
Well, aside from Grand Blue Fantasy, my knife grid is on its way.
Oh god, your knife!
It's still going, and you know what? I got one knife to drop yesterday.
Oh.
And then I bought another knife from the shop.
Oh my gosh.
I think half of my grid at this point is knives that I bought from the shop. Because they just don't drop for me. Anyway, knife complaints aside.
I said aside from Grand Blue.
Right, aside from the knife complaints. I went to LA to visit a friend of mine.
Oh.
And that was super fun. I ate a lot of food. I had some cheap Korean barbecue, which is what LA is known for, because there are a lot of Koreans. And we love our barbecue. And I went to one of those conveyor belt sushi places. And that was super fun.
Yay.
Also really tasty. That was actually really good.
Yeah, we have one near my workplace too, and we go there quite often because it's actually really good.
it was funny to me that there's like a fun mini game where you put the plates in the hole.
Yes, we have those
afterwards,
too.
and you get prizes.
Yeah.
Yes,
You get a gotcha.
I love that. I have a sticker on my phone right now, but it's like really faded because my phone sees a lot of wear and tear.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it's of a little oh shoot, what are they called? The little rolls. The ones that you put the fish on top of the rice pocket a little bit. It's the sushi. It's nigiri.
I was gonna say, like, I'm pretty sure the ones at our place are also sushi themed right now. So.
Yes. It's a little tuna nigiri.
Oh, that's cute.
Adorable.
I bet you we went to the same chain or something, and that's why
Yeah,
it's
I
like
bet you.
the same thing.
Aside from that,
Uh-huh.
honestly, mostly I just ate food and played Overwatch. Like, I was in LA and I just ate food and played Overwatch, and
Nice.
it was a great time.
That sounds like fun.
I had boba every single day, sometimes twice a day.
Oh god, that's too much.
Nah, it's just enough. I love boba, so I have no complaints about this.
I say that's too much considering, I mean, just last weekend I went to go get boba, so. Oh, you know what? What else I did? I went to go watch Incredibles 2 with Frenzies.
Nice.
Yeah, it was good.
It is good. It is
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
We could do an entire episode of Incredibles too.
Modern visual culture.
It is modern visual culture, and Pixar is a masterclass in modern visual culture. I also went to see Incredibles 2.
Mm-hmm.
There was a bit of a fun situation where we went to see Incredibles 2 as a group, but we took a couple cars,
Okay.
and let's just say that my friend's car started smoking, and we had to pull over into a parking lot and then have someone else pick us up and then take us to the movie, and we just left the car there, and they picked it up in the morning to figure out what was wrong with it.
Oh, what was wrong with it?
I mean, there were many things wrong with it. So, for one, the oil cap wasn't on the engine, which is bad.
Yes.
For two, the engine was heavily overheating, which was also bad.
Uh-huh.
I'm sure they fixed it at some point, maybe, or either that or they're still dealing with it. I don't know. Whatever. Car didn't explode, so we're fine.
I mean, considering I'm car illiterate, I can't really judge someone on the maintenance of their car, but I feel like having the oil cap screwed on seems pretty, like,
yeah, it's
level
pretty
1.
important. It's pretty important. I mean, these are my friends that actually know how to do cars. It's just that because they know how to do cars, they really like to sort of adopt cars.
Okay.
Or rather, they never give up on a car.
Oh, I see.
And so they are more prone to things like this.
Sure. They'll take the cars that no one wants, and then bad things happen to them because no one, there's a reason.
Right,
and
then they'll fix it themselves instead of going to a shop. So
right, yeah, no, yeah, I get you.
Yeah, they are technically more prone to this sort of thing. But you know what? It was fine. It worked out. Everyone got home safe and sound. Car
no
is
one
still
died.
somewhat alive, I think. Maybe.
Oh. I'm glad you're safe.
Yeah, I went to the fair yesterday.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
That was fun.
Mhm.
We didn't do a whole lot aside from watch my friend's sister perform on the stage, which was exciting. That was good.
That's cool.
And I ate a lot of food. I
Mhm.
ate fried catfish, which is one of my favorite things,
Ah.
and like half a basket of Cajun fries until I couldn't eat any more Cajun fries.
Oh man.
And then
Mm-hmm.
I had some desserts,
Mhm.
which consisted of, what did I have for dessert?
Something fried.
I actually don't think I had anything fried. We actually ended up not getting funnel cake because everyone was just really full.
I mean, after
Oh,
fried
I remember.
catfish and then fries.
Oh, I remember now. My
Okay.
my dessert was a beer. I had a beer for dessert.
That's not.
And then
Uh-huh.
And then
Uh-huh.
I had a lovely date with the love of my life, toasty elotes. Now, for people that don't know, elotes is like the Mexican grilled corn, and then they sprinkle like lime juice and like chili powder,
Uh-huh.
and mayonnaise too, I think sometimes.
Oh
Now,
boy, that's
toasty
luxurious.
elotes is if you took corn, like that corn, and then you dumped the contents of it into a bag of like Tostitos,
Okay.
and then you ate it with a fork.
That sounds really delicious.
It's really tasty,
Yeah.
and the only place I've ever had it is at the fair. So it's a once a year ordeal for me, and it's very important to me.
I've never had such a thing, so now I
It
want to
is
experience it.
it is absolutely beautiful. The love of my life, my beautiful mistress, the apple of my eye, the rose of my heart.
Okay.
Toasty elotes.
Your wedding photo will just be you and Toasty Lattes.
Yes. I ate until I felt sick a little bit.
Oh no.
And then I sat for like 20 minutes and I felt fine.
I can picture this vividly.
And then I went home.
And played more Grand Blue.
Yeah, honestly. I honestly go to the fair to eat food. That's my main goal. If I ride a ride or two, that's fine. But the lines were really long and there were
Okay.
a lot of people. So I didn't.
So I ate more.
So I ate more.
instead of riding.
I rode the Ferris wheel, but like the thing you have to consider is that I got there around 3-ish
Okay.
and we left around 7. So basically I had 2 entire meals in the
Yeah.
span of about 4 hours.
I mean, considering that, I feel like it's better that you didn't go on any rides because we both know what could happen.
Well, if I had gone on any rides, it would have been before I ate the
Okay.
bag of delicious gold that is toasty elotes. But I was considerate. And I also didn't want to wait in line, which is honestly, I think, the hallmark of me getting a little old. Because
That's
I
fair.
walked over and I was like, all these kids waiting in line in the sun. Oh, I don't want it. I don't want to wait that long. All these kids.
You are a kid.
Yes. But I'm less of a kid than the kids in line. And that's what matters. I am enough of a vague semblance of an adult that people will look at me and think, wow, that's a really mature 16-year-old. It's actually really funny when I was getting my beer, the guy who was like getting the beers and the guy who was the cashier were different.
Yeah.
And the guy who was getting the beer was like, "Did you check his ID like 6 times?" And he's like, "I did." And I was like, I know. I look like I'm 12. It happens. It happens. But yeah, that was my fair adventure.
Good.
I had a really good time. My friend's sister's band was really good, actually.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, she's the lead singer, and that is a musical family because both of those children sing really well.
Oh.
My friend sang at Obama's inauguration ceremony.
What?
Yeah.
That's wild.
He was part of the San Francisco Boys Chorus at the time, and he went and sang.
Wow.
Yeah.
You need to get your friends to sing us an intro, and then we'll play.
I don't think that'll happen.
It'll be
But
really
also,
good.
if it did, we would then be stuck using classical music as our intro for the next 80 years.
Oh, I'm sure they'd be willing to do something more animu.
My friend has seen exactly one anime, and it's Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood.
But that's a good one. Then they know.
It is a good anime. You're right. It is a good anime. So moving on from that, because that's all I did. I had an exciting week or two, actually.
Yeah.
There was a lot that happened. We already talked about Grand Blue Fantasy, so let's skip past that and talk about briefly about Uma Musume, which is a show we
Okay.
didn't watch, but I learned something about it that I have to tell you.
Okay, tell me.
I didn't know this, but the anime is based off of a mobile game.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay. Is it called Uma Musume Pretty Derby?
Yes. And here's the kicker.
Okay.
Get it? Because horses, kickers.
Yeah, that's what I was about to say.
Here's the kicker.
Okay.
It is published by Games, who also does Grand Blue Fantasy.
I mean, Sue, I feel like this game is for you then, buddy.
It's not for me.
I think it's for you. All the signs are pointing to it. The fact that you can't get it out of your mind, you brought it up at the very last second of the spring start. It's worked its way into your brain, into your heart. It's made by Games.
It's derbied its way into my brain at the most inopportune moments.
And you made a horse pun. I think it's time.
No. I do hear that people enjoyed this anime, though, which, for what it is, fair. But also, I'm not gonna watch this.
I mean, now we know where they got all the money to make this anime look really good.
It's true. It was from the horse racing industry and also from Games' billions of mobile game dollars.
Yeah.
So, I think that's probably enough beating around the bush. Let's talk about those things that we watched this season, which is spring 2018. Yes, spring 2018.
I'm excited. We have a lot to say.
We're going to give a brief summary of what the anime is, but if you want a more in-depth look at what it is, you're going to want to check out our spring 2018 sampler episode. Go!
So, up first is the one that I did not enjoy. Chibana-kan Tola Angulu. I don't know. What is this title? I was so used to the English one.
You know that the only difference between them is replacing the word Tachibana-kan with love, right? It actually becomes easier in English.
I know, that's why I was so used to the English one, but you have the Japanese title in my face right now.
Tachibana-kan Torai Angle, like triangle.
I know. I was so used to saying love Torai Anguru that Tachibana-kan Torai Anguru just doesn't. I like the English version better, surprisingly. Usually I like the Japanese version better.
It's because they kept the essential part of the pun. Because Tachibana-kan just means the place that they're staying. Like, that's what it's called.
Yeah.
But Love Triangle is... They know what it's about.
It's quite clever.
It's a really good pun. I think the show should have just been called that, honestly.
I think it should have, too. That's why I was... He threw me off anyway.
But yes, it is every bad harem anime you've ever seen where the protagonist gets into all these unfortunate, lucky pervert situations, but it's about lesbians.
Yeah,
so they're all ladies.
I can't figure out whether it was probably a good thing that it was condensed into little half episodes, right? Like, I was about to say, like, maybe if they had more time to actually develop things, that it would have been a better quality.
You would not have enjoyed it regardless.
Yeah, but then it would have just like been every other bad harem where it's like they drag out everything, like they drag out the plot and all the character development and all the little cute hijinks or whatever.
See, this is why I maintain that it's good that it's a short form, because as charming and as nostalgic as one can be for the golden age of harem anime, some of them went on for way, way too long.
So long.
Like, I honestly think that Love Hina is quite charming, and yet there's just a lot of it.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, well, maybe it's good that it's short form, but maybe it's also bad that it's short form because they had to do things, lightning fast. So it's just like this girl comes to this house and all of a sudden all these ladies are naked and like all up in her grill. And
I mean, it boils down the essence of what that is.
Yeah.
At the very least, it is transparently not very good.
I don't know. It feels like whatever I enjoyed from harem anime, like back in the day or even now, was somehow not there for this one, which is why I was so upset, because I was like, oh my gosh, it's an all-girl harem anime and whatever, it looks cute and stuff, and then it didn't end up being a good quality harem anime.
I mean, I honestly think that's probably just characterization. I think that the thing about harem anime is that the character arc of all of the women in the show tend to be very, shall we say, it's very Fire Emblem. It takes place over a very short period of time,
right,
and then nothing happens after that. It's
right.
It's like if every character was Yosuke Hanamura.
You hate Yosuke so much.
I hate him so much.
Do you hate him more than Akechi?
I hate them in different ways. Oh, that's
but
so
if
tempting.
you had to pick,
if I had to pick one character to erase from existence,
yes,
I would pick Akechi.
Ah!
Because I think Akechi serves even less of a purpose in the game than Yosuke. Yep. No, I stand by my decision.
Oh
yes.
boy.
So this anime is not very good. I don't recommend watching it, no matter how desperate you are for lesbians. And that's saying something.
I mean, yeah, considering even you, who was like all for it, even when we were watching it and knew how bad it was, you know, can say that it was bad at the end. I think that says a lot.
It's so bad. It's boring too. It's only 3 minutes and yet it still bores me.
It was actually still boring despite how lightning fast all the developments were.
So honestly, my recommendation, like, I still stand by the fact that we need bad, trashy lesbian fiction. I just don't think this is it. I think this is, like, not bad enough that it's funny and not good enough to be good.
It was bad mediocre.
Yeah, it was mediocre bad. Like, bad mediocre. You're absolutely correct. Apparently this is based off a manga. Maybe that will be better, but I somewhat doubt that a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have much else to say about it.
Yeah.
Except for the ending is, like, weirdly metal.
Yeah, it has a metal ending.
The ending theme is, like, so incongruous with the themes and the aesthetic of the show. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it was like it's like metal, but not like baby metal, just like metal,
Just
and then the girls start singing, but it's not quite metal enough to be baby metal.
Yeah, it's weird. It's weird. That's all I can say about it.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Fumikiri Jikan, or Crossing Time, which is Surprise Lesbians number 2. This is a show that has 3-minute stories about encounters at railroad crossings, which there isn't an amazing cultural analog for that here. But just imagine if crosswalks took forever.
Yes.
So things, I guess, happen, or it's like a weird, understated part of the cultural upbringing of children is that they just spend a lot of time at railroad crossings because there's not a lot of space in Japan, so they're everywhere.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it works towards the fact that they are 3-minute long, right? Because that's about the time that you would spend at like a crosswalk.
Yeah, but nothing happens at crosswalks.
Yeah, but at this one there is.
I guess so. I guess so. I don't know. I thought it was cute, honestly.
It was cute. I think there were a couple episodes where I was like, I like where it felt kind of boring, right? Because it's slice of lifey, and not every story is gonna hit.
Yeah.
But there were quite a few enjoyable characters that I was surprised by. So
Yeah, I mean, I think it works really well as a 3-minute short form. Because even if you don't like an episode, it's only 3 minutes. It'll be
exactly.
It's
only 3 minutes, and then you can move on, and then maybe the next episode will be more enjoyable, which it usually is. So
it's one of those things where it's not the most in depth, but there is, with short form shows, a lot of the times it's really hard to build any kind of meaningful characterization.
Right.
And so they essentially have to say a lot without saying anything.
Right.
And I think this does a decent enough job of it. I think as a short anthology series, it's pretty cute.
I think it tells whatever information it needs to tell about the character, and then, you know, kind of like leads into the light humor that it has, like the jokes or whatever.
Yeah, the episode usually leads to like a punchline or two,
Mm-hmm.
but also surprise lesbians. The first episode and the last episode are about lesbians.
Very
like,
overt lesbians.
It's complicated because it's like, oh, girl A confesses to girl B, and girl B is like, oh, well, let me think about that, which is 90% of anime ever.
Yeah, but I mean, I like the fact that it was no nonsense. Like, I feel
yes,
this way
I am
about
interested
you.
in you in a romantic
No subtext.
way. No subtext whatsoever. I thought that was cute.
Yeah, they knew who they were talking to.
So if you want like to kill 33 minutes, just watch it.
To watch the whole
It's-
season of this anime.
It's so short.
It's super short. Cool.
So let's talk about something else that is also kind of short.
Yeah.
Isekai Izakaya Nobu, which has a different name, but it's Isekai Izakaya Nobu. That's all you need
It's
to
a
know
very
about it.
long name, but you know.
It's an isekai, but about a shop that sells Japanese food to these medieval peasants.
Yeah, and they actually explain it at the end, which was awesome. I didn't think we'd get that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I actually, you know what? I read the manga up to that point, so I actually knew that was coming.
Oh. Well, not everyone
And-
is you.
Well, that's true. I have to say, I really liked the design of the like fox shrine goddess.
Oh yeah, she was awesome.
But it's because I have a very clear weakness for very sharp-eyed characters.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
You like the girl in Recreators too.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
That one. That one.
That one.
I like her too. Listen, I don't know why. I just like it. I don't know why.
I don't know
So-
why either.
Basically, it just boils down to it is a fun, cute show about eating food and drinking beer
Yum,
and
yum,
doing
yum.
those two activities at the same time.
Yum 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 yum. It is enjoyable even if you are someone like me who does not particularly drink beer all the time.
Beer.
You just look at the food and be like, and then you watch them enjoy all the things, and you're like, I want to know how to make that, and then they show you how to make it every other episode.
Yes. They have like this nice fun ending section, which is always like a real life thing. It's actually really funny. It's kind of like watching a Korean or a Japanese reality TV show, but like condensed into a 3-minute segment.
Yeah. I
So,
like
yeah.
it.
It's very fun. It's a very fun watch, and each episode's only like 12 minutes, so
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, why not? Why not see
Why not?
some Japanese cuisine and watch them explain it, and then watch them show you how to make it?
Honestly,
Yay.
that's it. Like,
Yeah, that's the show.
it's a very straightforward show,
Yeah.
which is probably why I like it, because it's just about food, and I like food.
Yeah, exactly. I think it's very clear about what audience it's targeting, so they know
Yeah.
what they're about. They're not gonna like subterfuge you into thinking that's about food, and really it's about like human relations, which that's fine too. But sometimes you just need a show about food, and this is one
That's-
of them.
Listen, if you want a show about food that is actually about human relations, just watch Parts Unknown on Netflix. There's 8 seasons of it.
Or Amama to Inazuma.
Yeah, watch Sweetness and Lightning. It's so good. It's so cute.
It's
So
so
cute.
cute.
So cute. Okay, let's
Anyway.
transition from the stuff that we like felt kind of about or liked but didn't have anything to say. Let's get into the meat of the season.
Yeah, the meat.
We're going to take the boiled crab that is this season of anime, and we're gonna stop nibbling, and we're gonna proverbially crack that sucker open and suck out that meat.
Oh God, you are terrible.
Let's talk about Maho Shoujo Ore
Maho shoujo ore compared to a crab.
compared to a crab. This is an anime that asks the question: what if magical girls were buff guys in frilly skirts instead?
Yeah. What if they were all bara?
What if they were all very bara?
Mm-hmm.
So what did you think about this show?
So I really enjoyed this anime, but I enjoyed it because it was so like off the wall, like kind of like one of those like guilty pleasure trashy anime.
Mm-hmm.
That was this for me.
Mm-hmm.
So even though like I was having a really good time and watching it with frenzies or whatever, I know in my heart that it's not a great anime.
Okay. Well, I think I would tend to agree.
Yeah.
I had fun watching it,
Mm-hmm.
but I also don't think it's great. It is a lot like if Madoka decided to be silly instead of edgy.
Mm-hmm.
But man, it's just not amazing.
I feel like it had, you know, some potential to be amazing, and at least like the original creator's art is really good too. And I just think that the story kind of, you know, isn't like it's meant to be like a really light comedy kind of thing, but I think at times it's like too light in a sense. Like I don't know.
Yes, it to me feels like there's not a lot of substance beneath it.
Yeah.
So it's very hollow, and there's nothing about it that really speaks to me. Like, oh wow, it's fun watching high school girls turn into really buff dudes with skirts, but that wears off after like an episode and a half.
Right.
The pace is mind-bogglingly bad. It is. There are like for how over the top and silly the show is, it is unbelievably slow and boring.
Yeah.
I don't actually understand how they did that.
I feel like with a lot of gag anime, it tends to, I think this is like a pitfall for a lot of gag anime, is that they'll cram so many jokes and things and stuff that happens in it, but then by the end of it, it feels like nothing happened at all, and that it was actually a really slow ride, because you're like, oh my gosh, it's only been half an hour. It feels like forever. But I think with good gag anime, they know how to vary up the pacing or the jokes, or they have a good idea of how the audience is going to feel by this point of the episode, and so they can react accordingly. But with bad gag anime, it almost like keeps repeating the formula kind of thing, and then it just drags forever.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think the overarching thing I can say about it is that it's overwhelmingly one note.
Yeah.
It's not very complicated. It doesn't have a lot to say at all.
Yeah.
It's fun to watch, and fun to watch if you're watching it with other people.
Right.
But ultimately, it's like not great. Like
Yeah.
it. A lot of the times, I think it relies on its premise to be funny,
Right.
and it spends a lot of time looking at the fourth wall and being like, ah.
Right.
And as a result, it stops being funny because it's trying to be funny and starts being funny because it's bad.
Right. Like, I think I guess towards like, I don't know, I guess like after the beginning, the only parts that I really ended up laughing at were like towards the end when they did like that whole like drop in quality type of thing. Like,
yeah, that was actually funny.
They made a meta commentary on how anime quality like drops in order to save up budget for the finale, right? And so like they really like played this up and made all the characters' faces like out of control. So that was actually really funny.
See, that was really funny, but Gintama did it first.
Yeah,
and arguably better.
Yeah, it's so hard when you think about other gag anime that are self-aware like Gintama and know how to. It's like basically like they're veterans at this point, kind of thing. Whereas Mahou Shoujo Ore is, you know, very new. It was only like a 2-volume manga.
Yeah, it wasn't very long.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a fun little watch if you're like looking to goof off with your friends, but it's nothing like, don't expect any actual like substance out of it.
No, and expect to be bored out of your mind for some of it. Like this is the one of the only shows that I actively tabbed out during a couple times consistently. Legit, something would be happening, and then as soon as that thing was in the middle of happening, I would just pull up Twitter and look back, and it would still be happening. So, yeah, it's not my favorite thing that aired this season.
Yeah.
I think it goes too far down the parody rabbit hole because at the end, it tries to be sincere and it just falls completely flat.
Yeah,
It's
because there was no build up to it. It felt like
they attempt to make some kind of emotional impact in some respect,
yeah,
and it just doesn't feel good at all.
yeah.
You're just like you spent the whole time blowing raspberries and sticking your tongue out and like making funny faces, and all of a sudden you want me to relate to these characters who there's like nothing relatable about because they're all one note flat characters for a gag. Like
right. Yeah. It would have done better to like drop some notes about this or that they were going to lead up to at the end. But instead it was just like joke. And then at the end it's just like, oh, here's the actual like heartfelt thing that we wanted to have at the end that shows the whole meaning of the series. And it wasn't, it fell on its face because they didn't develop to it right.
It's a series that's really confused about what it is to the point where it doesn't do anything at all. You know, it's not particularly pretty. The animation's serviceable, and they do make jokes about it, which is funny. Ish.
Yeah.
But they have an entire joke dedicated to it where they're like, oh, these are the like weird meta characters, so they never explain that write and make the anime, and now they're gonna stop they have it's an entire episode that's a parody of Shin Godzilla.
Yeah.
But my god, was it just utterly boring.
Yeah, that episode was awful. It was like Shin Godzilla and also Osomatsu-san, which was so weird. And I guess it could have been funny, but like they dragged it out through the entire episode.
It was so boring.
So it was really bad.
Do you know what it felt like?
Uh-huh.
It felt like a less well-executed episode of Panty and Stocking. There's an episode where and I think this works in Panty and Stocking's favor because it only lasted about 12 minutes.
Okay.
One of the episodes is like this really sad, somber look at this dude, and it's like animated in this really realistic style, and he's just like really, really sad. And then they come in at the end and whatever. I think that was way more well executed than the other one, where like the main characters don't even feature until the end.
Right.
Where it's like, look at that.
I don't know if this was actually a chapter that was in the manga, but it felt like filler because of how much they dragged it out. Like
it did. It felt really like filler.
I don't know. Maybe it was like a couple pages or like a page in the manga or like an omake kind of thing, but then they had to drag it out for like a whole episode in the anime. I don't know. That's how it felt.
Yeah, I was very meh about it. Like I probably enjoyed it even less than you did. Because also they have two different sets of girls that like other girls and none of them kiss. And like that sounds like a joke that I'm making about my propensity towards like liking shows about lesbians, but in actuality, this is a big problem in magical girl anime, especially where it is assumed that this is okay because these are not fully formed adults and they'll grow out of their lesbianism.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the very least, Mahou Shoujo Ore could have made a statement about that, and at least it would have been somewhat subversive. But at the end of the day, it's just everything that is bad about regular magical girl shows with none of the sincerity of regular magical girl shows and none of the bite to a real parody. Like, that was, I think, the main issue that I took from it is it is a parody of which there is no point to the parody.
Right.
At which point, why aren't you just doing the thing?
Yeah, like I feel like, because of the premise, right? The premise itself is subversive, but they didn't carry it like a step further, like you said, where like the girls could actually kiss and that would be hugely subversive, and they have the platform to do it because their premise is already in itself subversive, right? It would build into the commentary. But because they didn't push it further, I guess, and they only just stuck with that one premise and just like ran with it rather than like building up on it, it felt like very flat.
Yeah, it's utterly surface level, incredibly pedestrian. It's
so casual.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't even recommend this to like a casual viewer.
Yeah,
it feels so pointless.
Mm-hmm.
And that's because it doesn't have teeth as a parody. It feels like, why are you doing a parody if you don't have something to say with it?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not funny, because it wasn't. It to me feels like what would happen if you asked a 6th grader to write a parody. Because they'd just be like, oh, okay, I'll just make it sillier, right? And there's no point behind it. It's like, it's such a surface level reading of Magical Girl as a genre. Nothing about it felt meaningful to me. It's let's just say it's not a show that's gonna stick in my mind for a long time, except for when I bring up bad shows.
Yeah, I think it's just like a missed opportunity. Like it could have done a lot, but it didn't. But then at the same time, it's just like maybe it didn't want to do a lot. Maybe it just wanted to be a very transient experience. Like, here's a funny thing, haha, time to move on. I don't know. I don't know what the author's intent was, but it had a couple of good jokes, but overall, it's hard to recommend.
Not worth watching. Let's talk about something that is worth watching.
Oh! So next we have Otaku ni Koe wa Muzukashii, which is a manga that Soup and I have been keeping up with online, and it became an anime, and boy were we delighted, because he and I both have a soft spot for office worker romances in a kind of like they're like nerdy work office workers, right? Like they categorize themselves as otaku, right? Different types of otaku. One's a gaming otaku, one's a fujoshi, etc., etc. And the manga, the way that it's written, is extremely self-aware, because I think the author said that she based some of the characters off of like her friends and their dynamics, so it feels very relatable.
Oh my gosh, I have so much love for this show.
Yeah, and like the fact that the show is carried by essentially like 4 characters, right? Tells you a lot about how well these characters are, portrayed.
It, to me, feels very sincere in its portrayal of romance, and I think that might be in part because the characters are based on people that the mangaka knows.
Yeah.
It's probably the most realistic romance that I've ever read or watched. It's very slow. It's like, I'm not gonna say slow, but it is a slow burn, right?
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of episodes where not a lot of romantic progress is made, but at the same time, it feels like regular people romance, right?
It does.
It is so utterly relatable.
Yeah.
For the progression of the relationship between the 2 main characters to be, man, I'm lonely. Do you want to go out? Okay. And then they don't do anything for the next couple episodes. And then they're like, we should probably go on a date, huh? Yep. That is so much closer to what an actual romantic relationship is like than any shoujo manga that I've ever read. Because boy-oh.
Yeah, that's super real. And the fact like they eventually, of course, come to the question of like, why are we like, are we even attracted to each other? Because we haven't done anything. And then, and then it leads into like the affirmation of, yeah, I'm actually really attracted to you. And then the development happens, right? But it doesn't ever feel like overly dramatic or anything like that. It doesn't feel unrealistic for the characters. It feels so like it leads into it naturally and in a way that you're basically just left screaming behind your screen as you're watching them be cute.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's a very I've said relatable. I think it's a very down-to-earth show.
Yeah.
It's very realistic about the way that romance works.
Like, it's not always about the dokis, right? I mean, of course, there's, like, really good shoujo series out there, like Ore Monogatari, which is, like, basically always dokis. But
Super
then this
dokis
one...
all the time.
Yeah, all the time, which of course there are relationships that are like that. But then this explores the other side of it where it's just like, we started off as like really long time friends, so it's probably going to feel really casual like most of the time, but we are dating now, so we're going to have a couple moments where, we explore that part of our new relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I'm so glad it became an anime. I
agree.
still highly recommend the manga to anyone who enjoys this series because the pacing of the manga is obviously different. It's faster paced because it's not having to be stretched out into an anime,
Mm-hmm.
and they make jokes that you can't really catch in the anime because it's not something that's animatable.
Yes.
But yeah, I hope that they make another season whenever the mangaka makes more content to constitute another season.
Yeah, I would say that it feels a lot like Golden Kamui, which aired this season, in that the anime doesn't really do anything that the manga already doesn't do.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
But it's nice to have color and voices and music. Because, oh lord, my boy Tomokazu Sugita and my girl Miyuki Sawashiro. Miyuki Sawashiro could murder me in cold blood and I would thank her. She's going on maternity leave and I am tragedy. I'm gonna miss her voice in the next coming seasons.
What will you do? She won't be in like any show. She'll go from being in every show to none of the shows.
I know. I'm so sad.
It will be empty.
That's fine. She'll be back eventually. And
your boy will be around, probably.
Yeah, my boy Tomokazu Sugita will be around. I'll just use Sugita as my, point. That's the boy person. Definitely give it 3 episodes. I think the first episode or 2, the pacing is a little bloated. It's a little bit slower than
it's so
it
slow
has
in the first 2 episodes.
any need to be, really, because...
Yes, they need to be, which is sad, but true.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, it's funny. There's a lot of references in it that you don't have to get to enjoy it, because it's just people being enthusiastic about things that they like.
Yeah.
And that's fun. But if you do get the jokes, it's pretty funny.
Yeah.
But not everyone just has seen everything on the planet, so I understand.
Yeah. Not everyone has seen Ava and will get the very first Ava joke that they make.
Pattern ow. Bum 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 bum
so
bum.
Good. He's a normie.
That's honestly my reaction too. Sometimes it's just like, oh no.
Oh
no. Yeah. So let's talk about something else and you're gonna sense a little bit of a theme, which is that all of the shows that we like have some sort of heart to them, have some sort of sincerity to them, have some sort of substance to them.
But that could be a matter of personal taste.
I think it is a matter of personal taste, but at the end of the day, what will stick with you is something that has something to say, I guess, is what I mean to say. I think that one of those things is Megalobox.
Boxing.
Which is about an underdog boxer man. It's like Redline, but about boxing.
Yeah, basically.
Which is literally, we did an entire episode about Redline, and it's basically no different.
We compared the two pretty, I think it wraps it up pretty well.
It really does. I think overall it's really good. Yeah. I have some issues with it.
Yeah. It's not
perfect. But overall it's really good.
But what anime is?
Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood.
I guess people could, I was going to say, people could argue.
Well, even Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood isn't perfect.
Oh, that's very big of you to admit.
But it gets pretty damn close. Here's the thing about Fullmetal Alchemist. The only way for Fullmetal Alchemist to have been perfect, because I think Fullmetal Alchemist is the perfect manga, the only way for it to have become the perfect anime is if they had drawn it out and had spent more time with the beginning bits.
I agree that
Brotherhood
should have had the beginning illustrated out like the original, but then I feel like they had a limit to how many episodes they could make.
I understand why they didn't do it.
Yeah.
Because there's no point in treading on ground that you've already tread.
Yeah.
You might as well just sum it up in essentially a trailer and just be like, okay, you like that? You should watch the original half of the original show.
Right.
But man, if it had just been that
It would have been the
extra bit,
perfect series.
it would have been the perfect series. Which is why I maintain that Fullmetal Alchemist is the perfect manga. Or one of a couple perfect manga. Because I don't think that perfection is unattainable. I think that to a large extent it's just a matter of personal preference.
Sure, like it can be perfect to you, and like even if I don't know, like would you say even if it has like parts that you didn't like, it would still feel perfect?
Oh yeah, no.
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about Fullmetal, well, I think I would have to think a little bit more about what the criteria for a perfect anime for me feels like.
Sure.
But I do think Fullmetal Alchemist hits all the perfect manga criteria.
Okay.
Because I don't think there's any part of it that really feels like it's wasted. It all
Sure.
feels like it comes together in a really nice, satisfying way. It ends really satisfyingly. It has a really great arc. Characters continually grow. They don't just grow and then stop. And it feels like a living, breathing story.
Sure.
But that's just my thoughts about that. Let's talk about Megalobucks. Which, above all else, I think people will notice immediately the excellent, excellent aesthetics. It is gorgeous, I say hesitatingly, because gorgeous I don't think is the right word for it. The animation and the anime style, the art style of it, has a very strong character to it that we don't really see a lot nowadays. It is the most effective anime that has come out post 2000 that captures the 90s anime aesthetic.
Yeah, and it does the way that the aesthetic matches the story is they build off of each other essentially, which is exactly what you would want from this kind of thing. Like it's not just like a throwback or like, you know, like a nostalgia train, right? Like they actually synchronize in a really nice way that gives you a good experience when you're watching this anime.
Right. Yeah. It's good because it feels like there's a reason it looks like that.
Exactly.
I definitely totally agree. It's a very old school story. And I think that will be a turnoff for some people, right?
Sure.
We're somewhat past the days where we all flock around stories where the underdog is always winning.
Yeah.
And so I think the issue that a lot of people take with Megalobox is that the story is very old school. It's, here's the underdog. He wins every fight, even though he's at a disadvantage, right? But I think at the end of the day, like, that's fine. I feel fine about it. I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it a lot because there is something to say about like classic storytelling. And I think it's not necessarily bad if you like hit all the quote unquote tropes or whatever. It's all about how you tell the story and how it feels in the end. And
yeah,
I think this anime felt really good. I liked it a lot.
Plus, it's only like 12 or 13 episodes. And at that point, I get it. You are really strapped for time, especially because it never feels like it overstays its welcome. In fact, the anime itself feels like it's rushing. Like it's really fast. To the point where sometimes you'll be watching an episode and then it will end and you'll be like, whoa, it's been 24 minutes.
yeah, that's true. And like suddenly you go from like, I don't know, the desert, and then you're in like the giant Megalonia Stadium with Joe. And you're like, how did we get here?
Yeah, it's blindingly quick.
Yeah.
I mean, I really liked it. And I think my main gripe was that some of the pacing sometimes feels a little off.
Yeah.
That is somewhat due to the episode limit, but also I feel like sometimes they spent a little bit too much time on some things and didn't spend enough time on other things.
Yeah.
And then also the fight scenes are a little bit lacking because they're a lot more flash than substance.
Yeah, I agree.
There's not any choreography to them, despite the fact that it's a genre and a medium that requires that. So it's a lot of like really intense, really high impact single moments stacked on top of each other and it doesn't feel very satisfying. But I think the characterization is almost enough to make that feel good.
I think so. I think they did what they could.
Because I think that the punch, right? The single knockout punch feels pretty good to watch.
Yeah. I almost feel like because like fight scenes are so expensive to, make, and it seemed like it was already going to be an expensive anime to make. Like maybe they had to cut down on those kinds of scenes and then basically only feature like the key moments or something like that. I don't know. I feel like it was probably some kind of executive decision, like we shouldn't focus too much on this. Let's focus on the important points and then go back to the characters. Maybe something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it's just a shame because a boxing anime really shines in its fighting scenes.
Right, exactly.
I think there's a lot about it that feels like the fight scenes are very, I think, generic.
Yeah.
It never feels like... It doesn't feel like there's a strong sense of style to any of the characters and the way they fight, which is a shame. Because the anime hypes that up. It's like, oh, Pepe Iglesias, he fights like this. But then he just fights exactly the same way as Yuri or Joe. But Joe just doesn't have the metal bits on his arms.
Sure. I almost feel like this could be kind of a parallel concern that I had when I was watching Yuri on Ice, which was like, I love the characters and the story and everything, of course, but the ice skating bits themselves, sometimes they looked really good during the key moments, but then everything else was like really painful to watch.
You definitely knew where the budget went.
Yeah,
you could see it with your eyeballs. It was crystal clear.
It's like, oh, this anime had, or this episode had budget. This one did not, and like you could, it's something like you go in and right. And you have understanding for it. It's just like, of course, this is going to be really expensive to animate. So they had to basically just tween this, little image of this person going back and forth versus like actually animating every turn and twist in like a really intricate figure skating routine. But it's basically kind of like how I felt during the fight scenes during Megalobox 2. It was like, I understand why they had to cut out parts of it. It's just like, it ends up being a shame, no matter what.
Yeah, I'm sad about it. It could have elevated to be really, really good.
Exactly.
Because there's a lot of metaphor around boxing as dancing.
Yeah.
Even in the show, they talk about that. And it didn't feel choreographed at all, which is a shame.
It didn't feel like dancing, which is a shame, yeah.
But, that aside, it was pretty good.
It was still good, regardless. Right? Like, Yuri on Ice is still hailed, right? Because it's good. And Megalobox is good, too.
I will say, I also like that at the end, it was just a boxing match. Like, it was called Megalobox because it's named after the sport where people punch each other with magic boxing arms. And then at the end, they're just boxing normally.
It's just box. Like
just boxing.
That's the name of the series by the end of the last episode. It's just box.
Box. I'd watch that. I'd watch a show called Box. Yeah, I will. Okay. And there is one thing I will say about Megalobox is that the most standout part, aside from the aesthetic, or aside from the visual aesthetic, is the sound.
Ooh,
the music is so good.
Yes.
Oh my god, it's good. So the music is by an artist named Mabanua.
Okay.
Which I don't know how to pronounce that for realsies, but you can find him on Spotify, and you should do it now.
So he did like the theme music, right?
He did all of the music except for the ending.
Okay, that's what I was
except for the ending song, which is by Nakamura Emi.
Yeah.
Which the ending song is great too.
Yeah.
But Mabanua composed the and the opening too, I think, by a different person. But Mabanua composed the entire soundtrack outside of those two songs, and also did all of the rapping portions. Like all those rap songs, which there are a lot of them dotted throughout, and they're all great.
They're all really good.
Yeah, I mean, I have to praise the choice for the music.
Mm-hmm.
Like whoever chose Mabanua as the music director really made a great choice because the music so fits the aesthetic of the show well. It's very gritty.
So well. Yeah.
It's very underdog sort of hip hop.
Yeah, and it's kind of like how you touched on before when we had talked about this, but it feels kind of like how they approach Samurai Champloo, where it's like,
oh yeah,
they had like the hip hop type of vibe, and you don't really hear that in a lot of anime, but the way that they incorporated the music was, to aid in the storytelling, and that's why, even though you wouldn't necessarily mix the two, it feels like they belong together.
Yeah, it's really unique, but it's also really 90s.
Yeah.
So it kind of pulls double duty there, and it does a really great job. Because, fight scenes may not have been that great, but when that main theme kicks in and Joe is up for the last time, you're like, oh damn, something's about to go down. The music does an amazing job of getting you hyped.
Yeah, for sure.
And they play it at really opportune moments. It's great.
Yeah, it's so good.
That's it. That's
it.
That's all I have to say about Megalobox. If you miss 90s anime, watch it.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if you want to watch a good boxing anime, I think it had a really strong couple opening episodes, and then later the shine of it starts to wear off. It's like,
yeah,
the first 3 episodes are like a tour de force, and then the rest of it is like the rest of the anime. And then the ending's fine. He doesn't die, by the way.
Yeah, it ended in a way that we were not expecting, which was we thought that he would die because Ashita no Joe, he dies
at the end.
Yeah, and so we were like, oh no, and because they kept titling it up until that point, like not dead yet, and then it was
Born
like
to die.
Born to
World
Die
is a
at the
fuck.
very last episode. We were like, no. But then in the end, and I think because they knew that everyone in the audience who knows Ashita no Joe would think that he was dead, they didn't show him alive until the very, very end.
Yeah, I thought that was fun, honestly.
Yeah, it was fun. I liked it. I liked the way that they ended
ending.
it. Mm-hmm.
I think some people might find some issue with it, but I liked it.
Yeah, I liked it.
He wins the fight. He doesn't take the title, and then he just goes and lives with Yuri. Yeah,
they definitely start living together and become boyfriends, and Yuri may or may not be in a wheelchair, and it's fine.
It's fine.
They play, the dog likes Joe. Listen, if your dog likes the person that you were rivals with for forever and ever, and then you guys become friends in the end, you're basically married.
Yeah, it's actually the law. It doesn't matter if you're 2 dudes, 2 ladies, or dude and a lady, or any other such combination of people of varying gender performances. If the dog picks, that's it.
Yep,
you
that's
bone.
It. And then Joe was, he had the kid, right? The kid liked Yuri, so it's just like on both sides.
It's true. It's true. They adopt Sachio, and then he becomes a famous boxer, adopted by 2 boxers. Yep. That's my personal headcanon, at least.
That was the subtext of this whole thing.
That was the subtext. I mean, listen, sports anime is always like very subtextually homoerotic. There's no escaping it.
There's no escaping it.
Yep. It's just the raw sexual energy of 2 strong men embracing while half naked. And then also beating the snot out of each other.
Yeah, I mean, they're obsessed with each other, but they're also, taking out a couple of things on each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about Hinamatsuri. Which is about your local Yakuza man adopting a psychic daughter.
So good.
This, I will say, is one of the standouts of the season.
I would tentatively say, I actually, you know what? No, I'm going to say it. It was probably my favorite of the season. It was wonderful. And I didn't know what to expect going into it because I didn't know anything about this series, going into it. Like you had read the manga and so you knew everything, but I didn't know anything. And boy, it just like exceeded every expectation that I could have had.
Yeah, it is mind-bogglingly funny.
Yeah, like I was shocked at how good each joke landed with me because like normally with like gag or comedy anime, it takes me a while to get into it, right? Then I'm like, okay, I kind of understand the humor. It's funny now. This one, it took no time for me to
Yes.
start busting out laughing.
You know what? So this is a it's a very traditional like tsukomi type humor, which if you don't know is a Japanese style of humor, which is sort of equivalent to the straight man and the funny man.
Yeah.
So the funny man will say or do something ridiculous, and the straight man will set them straight. But it's like a very highly developed thing in Japan, and it's really funny if that's a thing that you get.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times it does feel like you need to spend a couple of days in that headspace to get into it. But the thing about Hinamatsuri is that the animation is good and the comedic timing is so good, and they play well together in a really great way, in such a way that you don't need to have that sort of cultural understanding for it to be funny. It's just funny.
Right. Yeah, I was shocked at how much I just like I ended up adoring the characters like immediately.
Yes, they're highly endearing.
Yeah, and they're all very different and they're characterized so well. It's like, oh my gosh. Each one of you I adore.
The characters are really great, which is, I think, also one of the things that lends to the comedy being really good. Because if you're invested in characters and they start making jokes, it's really funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially if it's their particular quirks playing against each other, which is exactly what Hinamatsuri is all the time.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's the same reason why Konosuba is funny, is because it has great comedic timing and great animation that is also really funny in and of itself. And also it's these characters that you really like.
Yeah.
Sort of interacting with each other in amusing combinations.
Yeah, and it doesn't feel like it feels like they the way that they joke around with each other and they're constantly like comparing each other, like comparing one person to another, like that kind of thing. It makes it all feel like they're all meshed into the world together versus like isolated incident after isolated incident, which I feel like some comedy anime can get into, right? It doesn't feel very genuine. But with this anime, all the characters are interacting with each other so much that you feel like you are getting this little sneak peek into like their little corner of the city.
Yeah, I would say that that's one of, I think, the greatest strengths of this show is that because it feels like there is some amount of progression, it never feels like... See, this is the thing about the jokes, is the jokes are funny, and they're funnier because they mean something. Right? They have an impact, and the things that the characters do and say and what happens to them is meaningful to the story. There's not like a single central story, but the stories build off of each other in such a way that the narrative of these characters is always moving forward, and that's, I think, maybe one of the greatest strengths. This is why it also really, really lands when they do the emotional turnaround.
Yes, oh my god.
Which is what Mahou Shoujo Ore fails at.
Oh, shade.
And what I will affectionately refer to as the Gintama shuffle.
Oh god, the Gintama.
Because Gintama's also really good about this, where if you're invested in Gintama, the jokes are funny. The jokes are funny-er because they're in context. And then when the serious stuff happens, suddenly it matters. And it's not funny anymore, but it becomes meaningful.
Suddenly you're in tears and it's not because you're laughing.
Yeah. This is something, right? Where there was an interview with one of the actors for The Princess Bride who put it beautifully, where there's always a moment in a comedy where, you know, it's not funny anymore because it's real. Right. Which is like the Six-Fingered Man was basically a metaphor for like, or to him it was a metaphor for his father dying of cancer. Right. And so that's the moment where it's not funny, but it's meaningful and impactful. Right. And that's it, right? It's that it's that sincerity, and it's that context, I would say, right? It always feels like there's something underneath all of the interactions, which is what Mahou Shoujo Ore doesn't have. Because I mean, let's be real, Mahou Shoujo Ore doesn't have characters. Yeah. It has pink, lesbian 1, silver, boy 2, lesbian 2, and lesbian ? They're not characters. They're cardboard cutouts.
Yeah.
Whereas in Hinamatsuri, they all feel like characters.
Yeah, I think it just does that characterization of them, and the way that they make sure that the comedy is relatable, even though it's such a bizarre situation, right? Like a yakuza and a psychic girl. The comedy is still relatable in a way that makes you laugh, and because it's relatable, when it builds into the sad moments, those also feel relatable, right? Like it feels so real and well connected to you that, you know, like good comedy needs to feel well connected to you. And so
there's this so there is a saying about comedy and tragedy, which is that comedy is tragedy with a punchline.
mm,
And that I think holds very true for Hinamatsuri. It feels it excels in both comedy and tragedy, and the reason that it can do that is because it understands timing really well. It understands characterization really well, and the way that it utilizes the moment when it's not funny anymore is good.
Yeah.
That's why it feels impactful.
Yeah. Like it never feels like out of place, like it's trying to force like a sad moment or a happy moment, right? It just kind of like rolls into it, and you don't see it coming, but at the same time it doesn't feel like you were made to feel sad, or like here's a character, make sure you care about them because something sad's happening to them. It doesn't feel like that, right? Because you're already, by that point, the emotional attachment has been established.
Right. It matters because you're legitimately attached to these characters, and not because it tells you to be attached to them. It builds characters in a way that's really satisfying.
I love that a lot, because I think a lot of series out there, they can tend to feel formulaic in terms of like, hey, look at this character, like, don't you feel like you love them a lot? They're gonna die in the next episode.
Right.
Like they
exactly.
built up the character development, or they built up the emotional attachment to them so that they can break your heart when they die, right? Like you could see that coming like a mile away, and you know, people will cry about it or whatever, but it feels very shallow in the end, right? Or if you end up feeling very frustrated because it's like, what did I build up that attachment for, right? So I don't think this series definitely doesn't do that, in my opinion. It feels very genuine.
The rhythm of it is really good. The underlying rhythm behind it is it's so good, because it's like big joke, small joke, big joke. It's almost like a waltz, right? And the reason that it feels meaningful when Anzu becomes adopted is because it originally started as a joke, right?
Yeah.
It's like she comes in and she's just like, oh, Hina, I have to take you back. Wait, the pods are broken. Oh no, let's compete or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, like, the joke is that she can't go back home. And so she's just stuck there. And that's like, oh, that's funny. But then you take it past that, and you take it past the punchline, and you're like, oh, she's actually homeless, and she has to live with all these homeless people in this homeless community. And then there's like some funny jokes after that where it's like, oh, this poor girl, she can't afford food. Oh no, Hina's such a trash bag. And then there's another moment like right there where, you know, she actually integrates into this community and it feels meaningful. And then there's a couple jokes, and then there's all of the tragedy surrounding the homeless community being broken up, right? And she has to be adopted essentially. And that it feels like it's part of something, right? It's all a part of Anzu's narrative. And you can't have something that is just tragedy all the time, or else you have Tokyo Ghoul, which is just misery porn, and not really good ones at that.
You also can't have something that's just like comedy all the time, which is like what Mahou Shoujo Ore ended up trying to be.
Right. The sort of dual nature of it is what makes it work. It's what gives the comedy weight and what gives the drama impact.
Yeah, like the fact that they led into it so masterfully. Like at first when Anzu comes in, like you don't care about her, or at least I didn't care, because I didn't know you know how much I would end up liking her. But like, yeah, she was just like, oh, she's just this bratty kid who like is obsessed with Hina, whatever, and oh, she's stuck, haha. And then because they kept developing her story like gradually, and then they didn't like conveniently ignore things. They kept pushing the narrative. I think just ended up telling a more powerful story. Like I think they could have very easily just had her continue being homeless or whatever. But the fact of the matter is like there is an active movement in cities to, you know, push out the homeless, right? They want to clean up the city, quote unquote. And this series doesn't ignore that. And so when it incorporates it, it's, you know, it's very sad. She ends up losing the family that she ended up building here on this planet that she, you know, she didn't expect to find. And then has to move on in the story, right? She has to keep moving forward as a character. So you end up like, I don't know, at least for me, I really ended up adoring her because I like the way that she became and like continues to develop.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's character development is what it is. Right?
Yeah, it is. It's a narrative.
Anzu's the character that is like the character development character in the show.
Yeah. Like, I mean, there's character development with basically every character, but I think her narrative was probably one of the most compelling.
Yeah. And this is the reason why shows like Naruto and Bleach start to lose their appeal after a while, and why One Piece doesn't. It is that rhythm exactly, because here's the secret to One Piece's success.
Oh, tell me.
Which is, it never loses sight of what it is, right? There are a lot of serious moments, very serious moments in One Piece. Moments where I was like, oh my god, right? Because the moment when Ace dies is one of the most impactful moments in a long-running shonen manga that I've ever read in my life. I was like... heartbroken. I was
even
like,
people
oh
who
my
don't
God.
watch One Piece know about when Ace dies.
Yeah, and the reason is because that it gives the narrative stakes. It makes it impactful and meaningful.
Right. Because
it's like the moment when it stops being funny.
Right.
But at the same time, One Piece never stops being funny after that. It always cycles back to this comedic, good-natured, good-hearted adventure, even after these really serious arcs where like really terrible stuff is happening, right?
Sure.
You know, and this is why Gintama also works.
That's what I was thinking
cycles
too.
Back.
Yeah, because like even in the final arc where everything is serious and you've gotten nothing but serious stuff for several chapters in a row, it eventually cycles back to the humor. Like it doesn't forget what it is.
Yeah, it's still really funny, even in the middle of it being really serious. And that's like relieving that tension and then building it up again is important, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it feel like it's not just formulaic. It feels new and fresh.
Right.
Because you're not just following a set rhythm, you're shaking it up. You know, you're making it so that things aren't just happening, but that things matter when they happen.
Yeah, I agree.
Also, it's just funny. Like it's so
just
funny.
A good watch, and the animation quality is so good.
Oh, it's so good. I'm not joking when I say that this anime had one of the better fight scenes I've seen in a long time.
It was amazing. Like, oh my god.
Actually really good.
That martial arts scene is one to remember.
It was awesome.
Yeah, which I love that they premiered it in the first episode. So like if you want to get a taste of Hinamatsuri and its animation quality, you can watch like the first episode and it will maintain that level of quality. I mean, they don't always have fight scenes, so don't expect that, but like how pretty it looks, I would say.
Yeah, it
continues.
The animation is really great, even for like seemingly trivial things.
Yeah, exactly.
They just kind of put animation wherever they feel like it.
Yeah, I love that.
The over animation of the guy's face when he's like, "My smartphone," is the funniest thing. It's so funny.
Oh my god! It wasn't even like it wasn't like a whole lot, but the little bits that they put in, it was so funny. I
legit loved this anime with all my heart.
It's so good, and I want more. I hope they do another season. They have to.
I hope they do another season too. I would love another season.
私のスマ
私のスマホ The delivery of that line is also great.
It was so good. Everything about it was perfect.
That was honestly one of my favorite scenes. But let's talk about Golden Kamuy next.
Yeah, Golden Kamuy.
Trembling in the anger. And trembling in the anger.
So the Golden Kamuy is basically this season's Yuru Kampu. But in the north.
Yeah, I mean, in a sense, yes.
Listen, they have camping, right? They camp outdoors. They show a lot of cooking scenes with the food, and they're like, this is how you do this thing. And they do it step by step. And then they have a cute girl.
You know, you're right.
You can't argue with me.
The honest sequel to Yuru Camp.
Yeah. It's northern successor.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, aside from the camping, it does have like another side to it, which is it's kind of a gory-ish story about a soldier and him, I don't know, essentially adopting an Ainu girl, which is like a native Japanese people. And they go on this quest to find gold. And the reason why I say gory is because the quest for this gold is through a map that is tattooed onto these prisoners, like their skin. And these prisoners are, spread out and they went into hiding or whatever because they're being tracked down and hunted for their skin to put together this map to the gold.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's a really, really awesome story. Like, it's action packed and it has some questionable CG.
That's my only complaint with the show.
Yeah. Like, it's so
CG bears.
Like, the story is so compelling, but then the CG.
I will say, if you've never seen a CG bear rip an anime man's face off, this is the anime for you.
But then you get all sorts of CG, right? This anime covers it all. It covers like a kind of realistic anime CG bear, but then it has like a very anime CG wolf, and then it has just actual fire.
Yeah, the fire is really weirdly realistic. I don't get it.
I don't either, but
they chose to use CG in very interesting places, and that's all I'll say about that.
And they use very conflicting styles, and I don't know. Like, that aside, everything else about the anime is top notch.
Yeah, I mean, like, the thing about it is, I would say that there's nothing that the anime does that stands out apart from the manga. Yeah. So if you're not into CG bears, just read the manga. But if you're not, good with blood or gore or squeamish, if you're squeamish at all, just maybe skip out because there's a lot of stuff that happens.
There's a whole lot that already happened, and I'm sure that a lot more will happen because there's quite a bit of the manga out.
There's a lot of body parts coming off of bodies. There's a lot of faces coming off of face parts. Yeah. There's a lot of... Let's just say that there's a lot of skin that gets removed from bodies. Yeah.
But somehow, it also, like, it has this duality. I mean, kind of like how we were talking about with Hinamatsuri, where, like, yeah, there's a lot of gore and violence or whatever, but there's also, like, really cute moments, and there's moments where you're like, oh, these characters are enjoying food together.
It's true. Half of it is, like, this blood-pumping, adrenaline-filled, like, action adventure where you don't know what'll happen, and you don't know if they're gonna find the Ainu gold. And then the other half is it's Yuru Camp. It's just Yuru Camp.
It's Yuru Camp.
Like, they sit around and they cook food and they eat it.
Yeah. And they're really funny.
It's actually this show is surprisingly funny too. Because the faces made are so good.
They're so funny.
This has some of the best individual comedic faces this season.
Like, the art in the manga is so good, and I think they do a pretty good job translating it over to the anime.
They did really well. It's a very clean art style. It's very standard anime, but it's not a badly animated show.
Yeah.
Aside from questionable CG
Aside from
use.
the CG.
And it serves pretty well as an anime adaptation of the manga. It doesn't do anything special, but it's nice to see them in color with voices.
Yeah.
And the next season is going to come out in October, so...
Oh, I'm so excited.
So we'll continue watching then.
Yay.
Let's talk about...
We have to talk about this.
Let's talk about Hisone Tamaso-tan. And I purposely saved this for last because I have the most to say about it.
Yes, I look forward to it.
Hisone Tamaso-tan was the best anime that aired this season.
Really? This one was your favorite?
This one was my favorite anime that aired this season.
Oh, really? Let's talk about how your opinion evolved, all right? Because we have it on record now on the internet about how you felt in the beginning, and now we have to reflect on how you feel at the end.
I felt very conflicted about this show because on one hand, the first episode was good. It was funny. The characters were good and unique. The art style was unique. It was animated well, but it was about dragons that are disguised as planes that eat their pilots, and they have to pilot from inside the dragon's stomach. And that distressed me to an unimaginable degree because I've seen the internet and I know what it's like, and I hate the fact that I know what vor is. But on the other hand, this was hands down my favorite anime that aired this season.
Oh.
It's just that good. Like, all my apprehensions about it melted away halfway through. So... to start, the animation is really good. It's done by Bones, who did Fullmetal Alchemist Brotherhood and Fullmetal Alchemist. God, you know it's going to be good. Bones is goddamn famous.
I think, didn't they also do Mob Psycho?
Yes. And Mob Psycho was the best animation, like animation-wise, of the year.
Yeah, it was
because
so good, so pretty.
It was really weird and funky in the best ways possible. It made use of a lot of different mediums.
Yeah.
And particularly oil on glass paint animation, which is goddamn difficult.
It was so awesome.
Legit, Mob Psycho is the anime that I will point to when people ask, like, what's unique about anime? That's unique about anime. Because they understand how animation works to complement the story and the themes and the aesthetic. Anyway, Hisone Tamaso-tan is... the animation's really good, as expected. The style is very unique. It's kind of Osomatsu-san, but like not quite. It looks a lot like a children's anime, but it's definitely not for children.
It could be, Soup. It's not violent.
One of the dudes asks if she wants to be his fuck buddy.
They could just censor that part out. It's okay. It's
anyway. The animation's great, and the art style is utterly unique. There's nothing quite like it. It looks bizarre, but also really good, and very cute, actually. It looks very cute.
Super cute.
The characters are all really, really compelling and very likable. Especially the main character. Just... they're all great. The voice acting is incredible. Oh my god, it's good. There were moments where I was like, oh my god.
You've not heard voice acting till you've watched this anime. Like,
you've not heard voice acting till you've heard the scream.
The scream.
And it's really funny.
Yeah.
Like, this is another show that is surprisingly funny.
Yeah.
And it handles all of the themes that it grapples with nuance and grace.
Yeah.
In a way that, my god, just, it's so hard for other shows to do it, but it does it just flawlessly. Okay, so let's get into it.
Yeah.
The moment when I fell in love with this anime was the moment when the opening changed.
Yes, I agree. The whole mood of the show like shifted at that point.
The whole mood of the show turns. Like there's a very clear turning point.
Yes.
And the opening changes ever so slightly.
Yes.
They have these lyrics.
Yes.
I think they play different parts of the songs for different parts of the openings, and it's just so well done because normally the opening is not used as a piece of storytelling, but this show does it. Like the show uses the opening to hint as to when the tone of the show changes and to show how, and also some of the backstory. It reveals some of the backstory in a really subtle and very, very not lore dumpy way.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, very difficult for a show that is so dependent on a very strange premise.
Yes.
It only ever tells you what you need to know, in kind of an expository way, sparingly. It tries to avoid doing that, and I think that's nice. But like the real strength of it is just how sincere and heartfelt and likable everything about it is. Every aspect of it feels like there's love and attention paid to it. It grapples with its themes in such amazing ways, which we'll get into.
Yeah.
But the opening changing, and also the opening, I love the opening.
I really like the opening.
So good. But that moment is when I was like, wait, did the opening change? Is this different? Is there things happen? I had to rewind it and watch it.
We all noticed at the same time. We were like, hang on a second.
It's and it's like the moment when the fucking whale shows up in the opening, I was like, oh my, what is that?
What is that? There's a purpose to having these dragon planes. Is it to defeat that thing?
And that was the moment when it turned from, oh, it'll just be a generic show about dragon plane war, to, oh, this is important.
Yeah, because the way that I guess, like, it's led up to that point was, like, you feel like it could be, like, a slice of lifey kind of anime, right? But it's about dragon planes and a pilot. And they introduce more pilots, and it's like, okay, well, we got more pilots for all these dragon planes. But then as soon as they introduce that swing of the story, it all starts to make sense. It's like, oh, so this is why they were training in this particular way for that one mission, right? It's basically to culminate into this one final arc at the end.
Yeah, all of the pieces of the show fall into place in a way that is just amazing to watch.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it doesn't overstay its welcome, which is something I say a lot, but it feels like it utilizes every moment of screen time in a really important way, because they're either building up the plot, building up a character, or showing something about the world or the characters or the plot, right?
Right.
They're all, it's no screen time feels wasted, to the point where they actually, it's not a full show technically, because the first episode is only 19 minutes long. So the first episode, I thought that would actually be all the episodes would be like that, but no, they all ended up being standard length, except for that one. And I get why, because the first episode is a little bit, introductory. It's a little bit slice of lifey, and you're not really sure where it's going for a couple episodes until it hits that point where it makes that tone shift, and then everything suddenly is retroactively better.
Right. Like you get why they had to build it up in that like step-by-step format at the beginning. It's because it had a very intentional purpose of leading you towards the end. Yeah.
And it's a good plot. The plot is really good. Like, I can't even qualify the moment when it was like, the point of all of this is so that you can, as people have done for generations, prevent this great catastrophe from happening. So they essentially have to pilot the dragons in order to guide the big whale god to its slumber.
Yeah.
So that Japan doesn't get destroyed.
Yeah, and then you furthermore learn that it's basically like a Final Fantasy X type of twist, where you had all these priestesses training up to perform this ritual, within the whale, and the ritual ends up with the chosen priestess sacrificing herself. And just the previous episode before, they had, I think a couple episodes before, they introduced the girl who would become the priestess, and then they, kind of had her bantering back and forth with the main character and resolving an issue or whatever. And you don't necessarily end up liking her, right? It's not like a forced type of like, oh, you better like her now because she's gonna have to sacrifice herself later kind of thing. It's like she exists in this space and she has feelings for this guy, and main character is getting in the way, whatever, they're rivals.
Right.
But then the fact that I think they handled that part of the narrative really well. Like they didn't, like the interactions between her and the main character are so realistic that you end up feeling attached to her at that point, right? At the ritual or after the ritual even.
Yeah.
But yeah, the the way that the characters kind of just like came to a head towards the end was what I ended up loving the most.
Yeah, the way that the characters interact always is really good. It always feels very organic.
Yeah.
And it feels realistic. Like this is how characters should interact with each other in a way that is meaningful and builds towards something and towards character growth. And my God, I totally agree, because you're not meant to like the girl who's going to sacrifice herself, and that's on purpose.
Yeah.
But even then, you feel sympathetic towards her when it's revealed that the priestess has to sacrifice herself, and that's why one of the themes of the show is this struggle against tradition, right?
Right. Mm-hmm.
It is the tension between following tradition and finding a new path,
right,
as a young person in the world. And if you want to like look at it, the traditional path is for these women to sacrifice themselves.
Mm-hmm.
The kind of way that we move around that is to find a way to not have to do that. The stakes are so high because it's all of Japan, right?
Yeah.
But like more so than that, it's all of the things that mean things to these characters, which is meaningful to us more than the abstract concept of the entirety of Japan.
Right.
Right. So there is this like tension between, do you follow the tradition in order to save society, ostensibly, or do you try something else to try to make something better, even though it might destroy everything?
Yeah.
It slots in really well with this theme of self-discovery and self-love, which that part is not very subtle because they say it in the show.
Oh yeah, they're very overt about it.
The pilots of the dragons can't fall in love because if they do, they won't be able to pilot the dragons anymore. You must love only the dragon, because the dragon is a vehicle for which you reach self-actualization and come to terms with your own identity, right? So in a sense, the dragons are the identities of the girls in a physical form outside of themselves. And of course there is the aspect of the dragons swallowing the girls.
Because they become one. Soup and the dragons feel what the girls are feeling, and that's why if they're conflicted, then the dragons are also conflicted.
Boy, do I hate that. But yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense as to why they have to be swallowed. I get it now.
It's symbolic.
It's yes, and I think it is really important that even though the guy saying it is like kind of a douche nozzle, and he's just like, you can't fall in love.
I hate that guy.
Right? At the end of the day, there is a point to be made here about, if you love someone over yourself, what are you doing to your own identity? Like, you become, incongruous. There's a disconnect between your body and I guess your soul, if you want to talk about it like that. And that's why this is because at the end, Hisone is essentially like, I love another dude, but I love Masotan more. I love the dragon more. I love myself more, right?
Right. Yeah.
Because she finally learns to love herself above all else.
Right.
It's not a problem that she can pilot the dragon. And this is where we're going to talk about lesbian granny. Because this is Surprise Lesbians number 3 this season.
This was subtext lesbians though. This isn't overt lesbians like the other ones.
This is so close to overt.
I know it's so close, but it's still technically subtext.
It's technically subtext, but you would have to be 5 years old to miss it. Because you cannot pilot the dragons if you love another person.
Yeah.
And the granny takes over at some point because Hisone is like, nah, I can't do it. I can't pilot when I'm in love. Goodbye. And the granny pilots, but then the granny can't pilot because she's in love with the shrine maiden who sacrificed herself all those years ago.
Yeah, like they explicitly say you can't pilot unless or when you fall in love, right? So they're saying like actual love, romantic love. And Granny tries to pilot, and
Masotan tries to reject. Yeah,
yeah, because
this Granny piloted Masotan before the dragon.
Yes.
Before, and at that point, his name was Montparnasse, which is apparently a train station or something.
It's a train station.
A train station in France, according to our French friend, and basically, there's this entire like backstory where they're just like, let's run away to Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And then
I think Montparnasse literally means train station. I think that's what was
I think so too,
upsetting our mutual friend Dia.
Yeah. Anyway, but it is a very generational anime because eventually the other shrine maiden who our lesbian granny was in love with was like, I would love to run away with you to France, but seeing the big whale god now, I can't handle that, right?
Right.
She's the one who submits to tradition and ends up sacrificing herself for the good of society.
Yeah. In the moment, right, she decides to actually go through with what she had promised, which was to sacrifice herself because she suddenly realized the full weight of the consequences of her actions. And like you said, gave into tradition.
Yeah, and it is like legit the closest you can get out of subtext without it being subtext. Like it's subtext, but it's almost not subtext because the moment she thinks about her, Masatan's like, nope, reject.
Mm-hmm.
And you know why that happens? It's because she's in love.
It's because they're in love.
It's because they're in love. And I like that, Hisone can still pilot Masatan in the end because she decides to, put herself above all else in order to protect the people that she cares about. Like she actually cares about things now. She goes from not really caring about anything to having people and, things that she really wants to protect. And that's great. Like, I love that.
They don't talk too much about her life before she joins the Force or whatever, but they tell you enough to the degree of she never had friends. She has a family that she loves, and she, consistently says that she loves them, but she hasn't had any other meaningful relationships outside of them. And it isn't until basically towards the end where, she very blatantly declares how much she loves everyone there at the Force and how she wants to protect them all. And, she does some dumb stuff because of it, but at the end of the day, she comes to love Masotan the most, and then she comes to love herself and the person that she's become because of these interactions with these people.
Yeah. And it's so, God, it's just so sincere. Everything about it feels like there was care put into it.
Yeah.
The music is good.
Yeah, I feel like even all the side characters had really nice arcs as well.
I was so sad about it because two of the characters fall in love, two of the pilots that are necessary out of the 4 fall in love, and they're just like, you have to break her heart, and one of them's like, and the other one is like, okay, we'll do that. And I was like, oh,
Yeah, basically.
Character development.
Yeah, he broke her heart so that she could
me.
fulfill her dream.
He broke her heart to protect her.
Yeah, it has some really sweet moments, and
It really does. I did legit last episode. I felt like crying because
No!
I got a little misty-eyed. I have to admit, it's just one of those anime where everything in it builds up to a moment where the climax of it feels meaningful, right? It's the most important thing at the time.
I think I think that's what's a shame about this anime is that it's one of those anime that doesn't fall into the whole 3-episode rule, right? Where it's like you watch the first 3 episodes, see if you like it, and then if you don't, then skip it and move on. This is an anime where you kind of you have to get through like the halfway point or however long it takes for the series to take a turn, but you have to get to that point in order to really appreciate it. And so it is in a small sense an investment, but the fact that even the ride up to that point is pretty fun, and then it gets really deep, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth it to give it a try and invest, and you'll be surprised.
I would agree. I think that if there's any one show that you watch this season, I like watch this show. It's just so good. Like, it's legitimately good.
I think you guys have to take this into account about how much Soup ranted about this series, and then now he's saying these words that are coming out of his mouth are things I never thought I would hear him say.
I mean, the progression of me watching this anime was, before watching the trailer, it's like, oh, that's cute. These dragons are being loaded up with armor, and they're just being shipped out. And then it was, watching the episode, and it's like, oh no, they swallow the pilots. I fucking hate this. To, oh my god, I fucking love this. It really captured me in a way that I wasn't expecting.
Yeah.
I don't have enough good things to say about it, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just my favorite anime that aired this season.
I think it's a shining example of how an anime can develop later on in the series, and how sometimes you gotta stick with one or two, and even if they're not so great in the beginning, if you've got a feeling, right? Like for me, I had a faint feeling because of how well animated it was, and because I knew it was by Bones, and how like there was just like this vague sense like they know what they're doing, right? Like everything about this is weird, but it feels purposeful, even in its weirdness. That thankfully the payoff at the end was so good, and I'm really glad that we kind of like almost coincidentally stuck with it.
Yeah. I mean, we said we'd give it a couple more episodes, and it was charming enough to watch, and then it ended up being really good.
I mean, part of the reason why I wanted to continue was because you hated it so much. But then
that's fair.
And then it ended up actually being really good. Like, I was like, oh, I actually like this, but the way that Soup hates this just makes me enjoy it even more. And then we both ended up genuinely really liking the anime.
Yeah, it's... I mean, it feels to me like there's no... It had no right to be this good.
Given its premise.
given its premise, and yet everything about it just worked so well by the end, and I was so invested in these characters, and I was so invested in what would happen, and the story itself took me by surprise, but not in a way where I was like, what the fuck?
Right.
I mean, I was initially like that, but then they explained it, and I'm like, oh, it's a story that's like so unique.
Yeah.
Because it's not like there's an antagonist. It's just coming to grips with a lot of the drama that arises out of, the metaphor of self-discovery and self-actualization in the face of something bigger.
Yeah.
In the face of something grand and important. Yeah. It almost doesn't matter what it is.
Yeah.
But I mean, it does, because I think the whale thing was cool, and the way that they did it was pretty neat. But
yeah,
I don't know. It's I would have to honestly marinate to think even more about what I like about it. And honestly, this is an anime that I kind of want to rewatch, like immediately after having just seen the last episode.
Sure.
But yeah, it's good.
Yeah, it is surprisingly super duper enjoyable, and if you enjoyed any of Soup's ranting in the beginning, I think it's worth it to go through the journey yourself and see how much, what kind of journey you'll have.
Yeah. This is contending with A Place Further Than the Universe for my favorite anime so far this year. Just because of how charming it was.
Mm-hmm.
I think that like Antarctica still wins a little bit.
For me it does. Yeah.
I think that particular journey is really compelling, and it does the emotional climaxes really well.
Yeah.
Whereas I think Hisone to Masatan executes them very well, but they just peak lower.
Yeah. I think for me, like the Antarctic anime, like it has like, the peaks like throughout the series, and then has the really big one at the end. And then Hisone to Masatan has like, it kind of like, it's like a steady ride up at the end, and then they have the big one at the end, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really good. Yeah. Character interactions are really great. I love the way that the characters interact with each other. It's so good.
Yeah, it's really good. I wasn't a huge fan of the main character at the beginning, but oh my gosh, did she grow on me.
Yeah, she really grows on you. Because you're like, who is this? To like, oh, she's kind of a weirdo. To, oh, I love this weirdo.
Yeah.
Like, she's terribly awkward.
Mm-hmm.
And can't speak her mind except for when she can't stop speaking her mind.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, like, you root for her.
Yeah.
You root for her at the end.
Yeah.
And you want her to be happy.
Yeah, with all her friends.
That's it. That's Hisone to Masatan.
Yeah.
Really,
her surprise
really
hit.
Honestly, this anime, I believe, is the underrated hit of the season.
Yeah. Cool. I think that's all the main hitters. After this, we've got like a small lightning round for stuff that we watched but didn't mention during the start, though. Or that we finished. So, first, I watched the 4th season of Yowamushi Pedal, which was Yowamushi Pedal Glory Line. It was actually really good. I think I mentioned this before, but the intro song is really good. But also, like, the storytelling during it was really good, with lots of action and kind of creepy moments because, Midotsuji's in there. But I liked it a lot, and I hope they make more Yowamushi Pedal because I'm a sucker for sports anime. Next is another one that I watched, Piano no Mori. It's based on a manga, and that manga was made into a movie, and then now it's an anime about boys playing piano. The CG in it is horrific, but I really like the story. Like, you ain't seen CG till you see piano boys in CG. Next is Hosuki no Reitetsu, 2nd season Sono Ni. It's more Hosuki no Reitetsu. I can't really say much more about it because it literally is just more of the series.
Okay. Next is Boku no Hero Academia.
Yep.
My Hero Academia is more My Hero Academia. It has the best opening so far of all the Academias. We're on season 3 right now, and it's the best opening. It is one of the best arcs so far until the stuff that happens really recently in the manga. I think some of the animation, like some of the fight choreography, could be a little bit better, but it's still so fucking hype when All Might punches out a dude. Next is Shokugeki no Soma, which is Food Wars season 3 as well, I believe. I didn't watch it, to be honest, but it's more Shokugeki.
Why did you put it on here if you didn't watch?
It's more Shokugeki. Just watch it. Like, next.
Next is Gegege no Kitaro. It's actually surprisingly really cute kids anime. Well, at least it feels like it's catered towards kids. And it's kind of like horror themed, but not in a overly scary way because, kids. But I like it a lot. The music, the intro is really good. I like that. And the main character throws his geita at people as part of his attack. It's
okay. Next
is Binan Koko Chikyu Boebu Happy Keys, which is like a sequel to the first Boebu anime, and I don't know how much I feel in terms of whether it's better or not than the first series. I don't like the character designs as much, but the mascot designs are way better, so it's like give and take. I don't know.
Oh well. Next is Darling in the Franxx. We didn't watch Darling in the Franxx because, to be perfectly honest, I didn't really want to watch it either.
Really?
It's okay though, because I hear it was a massive disappointment.
Really? It's
Maybe.
finished now?
I don't know. to be honest, I'll probably watch it at some point and get back to you because I have a lot of free time right now. But at the same time, I might not.
I don't know. I think at this point I would just watch it for the animation quality.
That's what I was gonna watch it for. But yeah. Oh well, that's it.
Oh, well.
Done. Lightning round.
Whoa.
Season over.
We did
What are
it!
you up
We
to this week?
finished Spring 2018.
What are you up to this week?
I'm I have free time this week. I'll probably stream a little bit of pixel art and stuff. I'll probably be working on pixels for this podcast over on my Twitch at SwanDrawn, or I will post about it on Twitter at swan.drawn, or on our official Twitter at AbsoluteCast.
Nice.
Yeah.
You can find me at all the places at Literal Soup. I will be at Go Play Northwest this week, so if you're there, say hi.
Oh,
Come
wow.
play games with me. Eat pizza and drink beer with me.
Eat food.
Other than that, I will be grinding out my knives. Like, I just need more knives. Yep. I mean, technically, I need to have an internship, maybe, but that seems like quite a difficult proposition at this late of a time because I think all the summer slots are filled anyway. So I guess I'll just continue making this podcast.
I guess you'll just keep playing Grand Blue.
And I'll keep playing Grand Blue Fantasy, and I'll keep building a portfolio of work so that I can point to it and say, look, I was productive this summer, I swear.
Yeah, I definitely didn't just play mobile games all summer and watch anime and make podcasts. No.
Listen, the podcast is important.
It is important, but it doesn't look super great on a resume sometimes.
That depends on the resume.
It does depend on the resume, like, and who you're playing to.
I mean, so long as it's not like a fancy schmancy business place, they'll be like, wow, you have experience with audio editing and with organization and with media literacy and with social media and with literature critique, which is what I'm doing right now.
You know what? You're right.
Anime.
It just depends on how you market it.
I'm pretty good at marketing.
There you go. Also, I think I might have said my Twitter was swan.drawn. It's SwanDrawn. My Instagram is swan.drawn. Anyway, I think that's it.
I'm pretty sure that's it.
Okay.
I think that there's nothing else to do except for to say, Akechi Goro, eat your fucking heart out.
Oh, it's already end of spring.
I know, the spring season has ended. Next week, or not next week, but in 2 weeks, we'll be doing summer of 2018.
And he'll still be eating his heart out?
And he'll still be eating his heart out. Because he'll be eating his heart out forever.
But you wished for him to stop existing instead of Yosuke.
Do you want it? I mean, yes, you're right. But also, fucking Akechi. I hate that motherfucker.
Oh my god!
I saved all the swears in the podcast for Hisone Tomaso-tan and Akechi Goro.
Fly me to the